Hey cool cats and kittens! So welcome to day 4 of our experiment, and we're going to actually conclude our experiment today. So we're going to talk about what happened to the egg, why it happened, and just some other thoughts of that. So on the other days we looked at the balanced equations, we got the net ionic equation, we figured out exactly why all the calcium carbonate was converted into carbon dioxide, calcium acetate, and then water with the presence of acetic acid. So let's look at day 4 of our observations. So what I did is I actually poured all the vinegar out and rinsed it with water. And what you're left with is a rubbery egg. So you'll notice that it's translucent. You can actually still see the yolk in there. It's still moving around. And the reason why we can still touch it is because there's a thin membrane that's around the egg that didn't actually dissolve. Now, what's really unique about this egg is that, if you'll notice, compared to a regular egg, it's actually bigger now. So if you can see, it got larger. So by taking something away, which was the calcium carbonate shell, we got it bigger. So let's figure out why that happened. All right. So after we dissolved the calcium carbonate shell, we're left with the egg, which has the translucent membrane around it. Now, there's a lot of solutes inside the egg. So we've got the proteins, the fats, all the things that make up an egg. So that's on the inside. So we're going to put a lot of dots to symbolize that. We'll get the yolk there. Lots of solutes. Now, when you look at the vinegar doesn't have much solute. Okay, so maybe, a little bit of the acetic acid, and the rest would be water. Now, what happens is a process called osmosis. So a little bit of a biology concept, but it makes sense when you look at the concentration of things. So the concentration of solute is really, really high in the egg, and that's called hypertonic. So for those of you that are taking Science 10, you'll understand these terms because we talk about it there. Now hyper, think about when kids get a lot of sugar, they're really, really hyper. So hyper means lots of solutes, okay? So lots of solutes. So in comparison to the solution around it, the egg is considered hypertonic. Now the solute, so the vinegar, doesn't really have many solutes in it. So therefore, it's called hypotonic. Okay? So hypo meaning low. So a lot of medical conditions that you hear about that have this word in it. So for example, hypothyroidism is when your thyroid isn't working as basically not secreting as much thyroxine as it should be working. It should be secreting. So because this is hypotonic and this is hyper, water wants to go from a concentration of high to low. And the reason why is it wants to make an equilibrium. So what happens is water, okay, so we'll use blue for water. The water from the solution starts to go through the egg membrane. Now the reason why it's able to go in is because the membrane is called semi-permeable. So to permeate, so permeable basically means it allows it to go through. So it's only semi-permeable, so kind of semi meaning half or a little bit, is because only water is able to go through the membrane, not the solutes. So the water comes in, and nothing at this point is going out because there's more solutes inside than outside. So the water keeps going in to try to reach an equilibrium so that the amount of solute to solvent is equal in the egg and the solution around it. So what would happen if we left it is water would just keep going in and in and in, causing it to swell. And that's why our rubber egg is a little bit bigger than our regular egg. So if we put more vinegar inside the inside our beaker, what would actually happen is that the vinegar would slowly start to kind of cook the proteins and the fats inside the egg, making it rubbery. So you could actually bounce it a little bit without it breaking, making it an actual rubber egg. And it's just kind of like how they make cheese. So they take milk, the fatty milk, and they add an acid to it. So sometimes vinegar, sometimes lemon juice, sometimes other things. And what happens is it curdles, right? Some of you guys have seen this when you mix fats when you bake and you don't do it properly. It curdles. You get those little chunks kind of thing. It looks like cottage cheese. So what would happen is the proteins and the fats would actually start to kind of coagulate and cook, which gives it that rubbery texture. So to talk about the other rubbery thing that we spoke about the other day, I said that if you took a chicken bone and put it in the vinegar, the calcium carbonate would break down. Now, it wouldn't actually completely dissolve the bone because there's other things in that bone. So you could actually take your bone and start bending it and twisting it, and it actually would be a rubber bone. So for those of you that did that at home, that's great. Please send your pictures to me. I'd love to see them. So yeah, just to recap, we talked about the balanced equation. We talked about why we use vinegar to dye Easter eggs. We spoke about osmosis and why the egg starts to get larger. And I think we are done. So, show me your experiments, send me some emails. I'd love to hear from you guys. All right, signing out. Bye.